Hello, race fans. Peter Mackay here, welcoming you to the beautiful Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca, or as it was, Mazda Raceway, and now called WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We are here for the Apex Racing Academy F3 VRS Super Series Round 2, and after a real thriller at Monza 1 week ago, I'm sure we're going to be in for a treat here at Laguna Seca. Joining me in the commentary box today is my wonderful colleague Brian Delp, and bringing you these beautiful images and graphics is Marco Barbonera in Rome. Brian, I know you've had an enjoyable day watching NASCAR and such. Are you ready for some single-seater action here?
I am. It's been a nice day of road racing for me. NASCAR Xfinity Series was at the Daytona Road Course, which is the first time they've ever run there. So a little bit of history being made. But now we're here at WeatherTech Laguna Seca in these F3 cars, and it's going to be a lot of fun. This is one of my favorite tracks on the iRacing service. You just get to see so much speed around here, and the battling that you get from this track is just amazing. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of wrecks and people making mistakes, especially through the corkscrew. But I'm just ready to see this race because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. I have to agree with you. It's one of my favorite circuits as well. And one of the circuits I probably know best of any circuit in the world, because I remember playing this, driving around this track on the very first Gran Turismo title, and it's of course been on every single one since, and that was where my sim racing career, if you could call it that, began. So our drivers are out on track right now, just completing a quite lengthy 80-minute practice session, and then we will be straight into qualifying for 10 minutes of fast and furious actions, and then we will be straight into our 20-minute heat race, and then into the feature. And the top 10 in our heat race, that they will actually be inverted as a kind of partial reverse grid. So lots to go on here. And Brian, this particular track, Laguna Seca, is going to offer a completely new challenge and completely new prospect for us, because Monza, of course, it's almost like a glorified oval, isn't it? It's got so much drafting opportunity. Here at Laguna Seca, well, it's so tight. Track position is really hard earned, and this corner we're looking at on track right now, the corkscrew, it is such a challenge in one of these single-seater cars.
Yeah, it's going to be a car control day here. It's going to be those that can really push it on that edge, but not over push it, because here you really want to go fast and you want to carry speed through all of these turns as much as possible. And doing that, you sometimes push the envelope just that little bit, and you can put your tires out into the dirt, really, is what it more or less looks like. So you really have to be careful here to make sure that you do maintain that speed and you're not getting into anyone else, but you're also not slowing down too much and under using the car.
Absolutely, and just a quick run through how our championships standings are looking right now. We have two classes. You'll see on the timing screen on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see certain drivers have a little green icon to the left of them, and some have a red. Green is for our Pro category, and red is for AM. So in the Pro category, it's the Dutchman, Sam Kuijtert, who leads with 56 points, ahead of David Holland, who is tied with Mitch Green on 46. And our feature race winner from Monza, Christophe Herbinot, is in 4th place, but it's very, very tight with Herbinot on 45 points. In AM, we have Nick Brown leading the championship on 37 points, with Vors on 30, Snyder on 28, and Pancari on 26. So very close, and still early days in the championship so far. But what we saw at Monza was that really it was never over till it was over, because even if you take damage early on in the race, the drivers do have an iRacing fast repair at their disposal, and we saw that particularly in the with Christophe Herbinot, who used that fast repair very much to his advantage and was able to climb his way up through the field, get a good grid position for the feature race, and ended up winning the feature race, Brian.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where your goal is to keep the car as clean as possible, but you do have a little bit of safety if something happens. You're not going to get such a great finish. You will probably finish further back than you think, but as long as you keep pushing, you can come away with still a decent finish to keep yourself up there in points. The biggest thing is not crashing out really towards the front of the track because if you have to tow, that is a long way to tow around this track, and that's really going to set you back. So, you want to be able to, if something does happen and you need to use that fast repair, you definitely want to be able to drive back so that you don't waste that much time.
So our drivers are now taking to the circuit for a 10-minute qualifying session where our drivers have the blissful solitude of the WeatherTech Laguna Seca Raceway all to themselves. So all the drivers are actually in their own session right now, if you like, for a brief moment, where they can basically, they've got the entire track to themselves, not going to worry about any traffic. They just go out and set the fastest lap time they possibly can. So no excuses here for our drivers. Now, we must also mention our series sponsor, VRS, Virtual Racing School, who have very kindly provided the pro setups for our drivers for this series. So, you know, here on iRacing, every single parameter of the car that could be changed in the real world is basically replicated in the simulator. So in order to get a professional result, you need a professional to set the car up for you, and that's exactly what we have thanks to our sponsor VRS, the Virtual Racing School. You can have a look on their website. It's easy to find through the iRacing.com website. Click on the VRS ad on the side of the homepage and have a look about how you, and I tell you what, with the right setup in the car, it can make all the difference. So we'll see how that goes today and see how our drivers get on customizing themselves to this setup.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the setup can mean everything, and we are on a fixed setup, so these guys have to go with what they have, but that can really play with you because sometimes the setup is to your liking, sometimes it's not, and you just have to be able to adapt to it. And that's one of the biggest things that comes with doing a fixed setup league. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys adapt to this setup because, like I mentioned, sometimes driving style just works with that setup and your car feels amazing. And then other days, it is the worst thing in the world, even though it's a professional setup. So it's one of those things that it always makes it so much fun to see how drivers adapt.
Certainly does. So we're seeing our drivers now. We should get the first couple of times starting to come up on our screen. So we're getting a few of them now. Taylor Lane in the 32 car, putting in a 1 minute 18.466 for the Fiercely Forward Racing team. But we'll give them a chance all to get over the line. Christophe Herbigno, a 1 minute 16.485. He's got a little bit more in the tank than that. We saw him do a number of laps under the 1 minute 16 barrier. So really, Brian, anything in the 1 minute 15s here is going to be very strong. And we've got an outside look at a 1 minute 14 second lap, which would be very cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how these drivers really manage to get around this track, especially. And one of the parts that I'm really waiting to see is going to be that corkscrew because you can make up so much time if you can hit the corkscrew properly. Whereas also if you hit it wrong, you can lose a ton of time. So it really comes down to just maintaining this track as we see it here on the onboard, and just you really got to be right on that edge to really make that time. If you're going too slow and another driver hits that perfectly, you can lose so much that sometimes I've seen up to half a second can be lost in the corkscrew.
As you can see, a couple of our drivers really struggling so far. Laguna Seca, for me, is one of the most well, stern challenges you'll find anywhere in the world, and particularly here in iRacing. Very loose surface, very much a low grip surface as well. And as you quite rightly said, Brian, the corkscrew, you have to get it absolutely perfectly, because if you just make even the slightest step off line, you can be round. And like you say, you can also have the car behind you, coming in behind you as well. But this Laguna Seca circuit is full of heritage as well. It's started racing here all the way back in 1957, when it was converted from a former Fort Ord US Army base, and the first race was won by a gentleman called Pete Lovely in a Ferrari. And I feel that would be like my movie star name if I had to change from Mackay. I think Pete Lovely would be a very good name for that.
Yeah, and we see a car around there on the track. So, another thing that we got to mention again is slowdown penalties. It's very easy here at Laguna to cut a corner too much or push too hard on exit and give yourself time penalties. So, guys are going to have to really manage where they are with the tires so that they aren't giving themselves any penalties, because you really don't want them here with some of the longer straights that you have here and with how fast this track is. So it's really going to come down to just managing where your car is on the track.
So brilliant lap there from David Holland, a 1 minute 15.748. So you see the number 95 car of Ethan Lamp having a little bit of an off-track excursion here, just waiting the inevitable. Yes, very that corner, particularly when you come down from Rainy Curve, it can get really, really loose there as well. Yeah, so 1 minute 15.748 for David Holland. Hugh Barter right behind, just 600ths of a second behind, and Christophe Herbignot in third right now with the number 74 car of Sights in fourth as well. So very, very tight, and all of those guys are all big championship contenders. Now, one driver I don't think I've seen in the session yet, Brian, is Sam Coiter. Have any sign of Sam yet?
I don't think so. Another name I haven't really seen is Nick Brown either. So some points leaders are currently missing. So we'll have to see if they end up making it into the session or not. But that could be really big in terms of championship implications.
Absolutely. Sam Coiter came into this round with a 10-point lead coming out of Monza on 56 points. Was David Holland, who's currently sitting on provisional pole position on 46 points. So, yeah, that is huge for the championship. So just have a look at our SDK graphics on the right-hand side of your screen. You'll see the most important part of that information is the bottom part there, the track temperature, 41 degrees Celsius on the track, which is very cozy indeed. So that's going to make it even more challenging again. So we've got baking Californian sunshine here, getting that track temperature nice and high. And well, that is not nice for the drivers because it makes the surface really quite greasy and quite slippy and difficult for the hand-cooked tires on these cars to get the grip. Tire wear shouldn't necessarily be an issue, although Laguna can be very hard on tires. With only our short heat races, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for these drivers. Also tell you a little bit about this car. This is Dallara Formula 3 car. Of course, Dallara Dallara, the last word in race car chassis technology in particular. More IndyCar wins than any other chassis manufacturer. And Mr. Giampaolo Dallara, an incredible man who worked for Ferrari, Des Tomaso, Lamborghini. He designed the Miura, the Lamborghini Miura, and then started up his own firm to go racing in the early 70s. And he's produced some very special racing cars as Mr. Dallara. And nowadays, the Dallara F3 car really is the gold standard. And that's what all of our drivers have today. And all identically set up as well. So no excuses for the drivers.
Yeah, and speaking of the car, we do still have that livery contest amongst the drivers, and I think we know from last week where you're standing on that. Any changes on where you're thinking on the livery contest?
Well, there has been another contender, perhaps. Number 56, Charlie Oliver, is sporting. Now, I must be honest, I'm not necessarily a big Fernando Alonso fan. I've got the greatest of appreciation for his ability. I think he's an incredible driver. However, I'm not an enormous fan of his. Also, did you know that Fernando Alonso, his current girlfriend, is Valentino Rossi's ex-girlfriend? There's a fun fact for you. But yes, Charlie Oliver in the number 56 car is running the old Mild 7 Renault F1 team colours from 2005, and it's a very nice looking car, but I don't know if it will beat the Jordan Peugeot of Pancari. I haven't made my mind up yet, Brian. Any others taking your eye?
I still haven't found that. I'm waiting to really connect with one of these cars, so I haven't found one that exactly I'm set on yet. So we'll see as the race goes on. So I'm looking, like I said, I'm looking for new, for fresh, and we'll just see what happens.
You're making this livery contest sound like a strange version of Tinder, Brian. Anyway, on that note, let's run down the grid order for our first heat. David Holland on pole position, very closely followed by Hugh Barter, who will join him on the front row. On row 2, Christophe Hermignon and Greg Seitz. Row 3, Georgie Zwine alongside Shivan Baloo. In 7th is Dan Cranefuss alongside Kevin Zwemstra. 9th is Mitch Green alongside Dave McDonald. 11th is Ethan Lamp with Marco Halterman right behind him. 13th on the grid is Aidan Aquino alongside Nico Nolivos. 15th, Eddie Beswick with Gianni Espinosa in 16th. Mark McDonald is in 17th with the fiercely forward driver Taylor Lane in 18th. Martin Smith is 19th, Brian Vorse 20th, Jay Steffi 21st, Brett Pungkari 22nd, Isaac Snyder 23rd, and Colin Campbell in 24th position. And the rest of your runners there, you can see, I believe, we're waiting for our drivers to grid up. As you can see, Charlie Oliver didn't set a qualifying time there. Well, we've still got to thank you to our producer for letting us know. We've got 40 seconds remaining. Also, watch out for Andre McCullen in the number 85, our Jamaican driver. He's third in the AM Championship right now. So some say people can't believe Jamaica, they have a Formula 3 team. So he will be coming from all the way back in the grid. And Brian, here, if there's any track in the world where track position's hard to get, Laguna's one of them.
Yeah, and it's really going to be a track position race here, especially because there's not a lot of turns to make up a ton of time. We talked about the corkscrew already, along with the last turn, are really places where you can make up a ton of time, and really the first turn also.
Lights are up. We're almost ready to go here in the Apex Racing Academy F3 Super Series, and we are go! David Holland gets a good launch off in the 12 car as they head down towards the Andretti hairpin. And the number 12, David Holland, maintains his position in. We've got the 13 car there of Christophe Hermignon coming in. Is he pinched second place from Barter? Oh, it's going to be a tight squeeze, but yes, he makes it through safely. Our championship contenders are through and ready for a battle.
Yeah. Oh, and a car around in the backstretch, and it looks like another car also off into the dirt. So 2 cars there having a ton of issues. It looks like it's Gianni Espinosa, and I wasn't quite sure the other car, but 2 cars having big issues at the start.
Yeah, it was. You're correct. Number 26, Gianni Espinosa there. And the other car we couldn't identify because the piece of bodywork where the number was had been ripped off. So sorry about that one, viewers, as we see Hermignon just almost thinking about making a move there into the corkscrew. And you know, he's looking very racy. And oh no, that's the 41 of Shivan Baloo. He's gone off at the corkscrew on cold tires, Brian. It's like going down an icy mountain there.
Yeah, and the other thing you got to worry about is cars being around you. The corkscrew is dangerous by yourself, and another car often having issues there. Can't twice.
Oh, that's Hugh Barter. It's Hugh Barter. Oh, it's our championship contender. Hugh Barter is taking an age to get back onto the circuit. So what happened to Hugh Barter, the number 68? He was running in 3rd place. Let's have a look then. Thanks to our producer to get the replay there. So does he have a look into the final corner? Hard on the brakes. Just gets on the power a little bit earlier, and oh goodness me, I'm not quite sure who that was. It ended up in the wall trying to take evasive action. That was Georgie Zuine in the 23 car, who, bless him, he didn't have anywhere to go. Let's have a look then. And he's got nowhere to go. Whack in the wall. What a shame.
Yeah, it just looked like he knew he was either going to run straight into him or he could take evasive action. But as soon as he did, he got out there and just couldn't control the car at that point. As you saw, it just skid all the way out to the wall.
A change for the lead then. Hermignon, he was looking very racy. He's managed to get ahead of David Holland. So is Christophe Herbigno. Remember, our feature race winner last time out at Monza. He is making a great start to this motor race. And oh, we've got a spinner. That's the number 73. Oh, oh no. Oh, no, 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 no. Reverses back into the wall. Car was, oh dear, oh God. Oh my goodness me. That is not good news at all there. Number 73.
Yeah, some big issues happening around the track here. It's one of those things where you can practice as much as you want as another car's around. Oh, big damage again as cars are just hitting into one another.
Oh my, I think that was Taylor Lane. Yes, Taylor Lane in the Fiercely Forward machine, the 32 car. You'll have to take my word for it. It looks more like a Formula Ford now without the rear wing. So let's have a look. This is the 95 of Ethan Lamp coming around. Oh no, this is an air of inevitability about this, and oh dear me, into the wall he goes, and it's just it's a car park. Oh dear. Well,
yeah, you saw him question his decision on where he was going to go there, because you never quite know where a car is going to end up. But that car just stayed right in the middle of the track in front of him, and just at that point there was just no avoiding him.
So this is probably a good point to mention, Brian, how we saw a number of drivers really gain a lot of points last time out at Monza by we saw a lot of drivers lose points by simply getting frustrated and quitting at this stage and not taking the fast repair, not getting back out on track. But the drivers who did come back into pit lane, even if they had to get a tow, take their fast repair and just get back on track and start turning laps, and you never know what's gonna what's gonna happen. We've only got 18 cars out of nearly 40 starters on the lead lap right now. All the rest are in pit lane. Oh, as we see the AlphaTauri machine, who's that? That of Smith. Oh dear, dear, dear. I think that's Aaron Smith. Yes, a 42 with the Graham Hill and Damon Hill helmet. Oh, and he's lost a wheel. And that's the thing with these cars, carbon fiber monocoque chassis, they are so fragile, Brian.
Yeah, and the disappointing thing there is I was starting to really like this livery because I'm a lifelong Red Bull racing fan, and so seeing the AlphaTauri out there, as we all know, affiliated with Red Bull, so starting to really like that one, but now it's time to probably start looking for something else.
Yeah, now don't be a glory hunter now, Brian. You should help the peppy underdog. Look at this. This is spirit. I love this. From the 42, I think I might pinch it from you, Brian. 42 of Aaron Smith. He's got 3 wheels on his wagon, and he's still carrying on, and he wants to get that car back to pit lane, get his fast repair, and get going. I tell you what, I think I'm getting a soft spot for him because that is some proper gritty spirit.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there are so many cars that have had incidents at the moment that you never know where you could end up honestly finishing here by getting back to pit lane instead of having to tow like some of these other cars.
Absolutely, and I think Aaron Smith has done an amazing job to get that car back. Come on, full left hand down. Oh, I have to put it in reverse. Oh dear. So, but I think it's very apt that he's wearing a Damon Hill helmet because he really was a gritty driver as well and never said die as well. In fact, I'm reading his book at the moment, Brian. It's very, very good. I'd highly recommend it. But anyway, back at the front, someone driving like Damon Hill is Christophe Herbigno, doing a grand job at the front and really, really looking like the man who's got the pace, because David Holland in the 12 car is struggling to keep up with him a little bit.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where again, something can just suit another driver. Track conditions is one of those things where maybe with the temperature of the track, and we saw how slick it was, that maybe it's just suiting Herbigno more. That's just something that some drivers like a slick track, some like it a tighter track, so that could play into it. But I think he still has a chance at this, especially because it's very easy to make a mistake at this track. Also, you can lose your concentration for a second, and next thing you know, the guy is right there behind you. So it's going to be definitely a battle until the end, I think. I don't think that... Oh, and a car is around right in front of them, it seems like.
It's Aaron Smith again. I don't believe it. It's Aaron Smith. He's come out of pit lane, cold tyres. He's got his fast repair. That car, if you're wondering how that car has miraculously found a wheel, that is using the instant iRacing fast repair. Stay out of the wall. Oh, no, there goes it. I think that might even be the same tyre. Oh, it's not been a good start to the day for Aaron Smith in the 42 car. A podium finisher last time out. What a pity. But I want to draw the attention to now, just as I say that, he's disappeared from the timing screen. I was going to say, look at the 68 of Hugh Barter, but it looks like he has. No, he has. Sorry, it's refreshed now. Look at that. After that spin early on, he's up there now fighting for sixth. He's in sixth position. So even though it made such a big mistake, he's just kept it going, and he's going to get a good bag of points here.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, that throughout the entire races that we have, with us having a heat and then a feature race, and you getting points for both, that they do matter and will add up as it goes on. So fighting your way back, no matter what it is, no matter what happens, and getting as many points as you can in the long run, that 1 or 2 points that you maybe pick up can really make a huge difference in terms of the championship standings.
Speaking of, look at Taylor Lane in the number 32 car, right? Looking just heading in front of us right now in this yellow and black machine. He has had a big accident and has gone back to pit lane, taking his fast repair, and he's up to 8th place. And you're absolutely right. His Beswick goes slightly wide, but holds it well, going up the Rahal straight, heading to the infamous corkscrew. And it's just like going off the end of a cliff. Oh God, makes your stomach turn there.
Yeah, it's so blind that you don't get really a true accurate description here with us being up top on like this. But when you go into that thing, that whole drop is basically blind to that point where you're just hoping that you are in the right spot when you come down, because of just how steep it truly is, that you're not too close and going to get a time penalty, but you're also not too far away, and it's going to make your exit really bad.
Look at this. Look at the 30 of Beswick. He's making Taylor Lane think about it. He's gone a little bit wide on the entrance there, but just about gets away with it. But we know that Taylor Lane very fast in a GT car and doing a grand job here in the F3 car. Completely different machine to master. It's a completely different driving style. The car reacts in a different way, and it's all about that precision, which is much more rewarded in a single-seater car.
Yeah, and I want to go back to turn 1 for a second. It shows you just how slick this track is. That Beswick, when he was coming around, before he settled his front, and the back end was still sliding back around to settle the car, just because of how slick this track is at the moment. Like we said, it's 41 degrees Celsius, and for those of you in America who we use the weird Fahrenheit system, that's 106 degrees roughly. So it's a slick track, and it just means that these cars are slipping and sliding around, and it shows the car control that these guys have to have.
Absolutely. And another of the fiercely forward drivers is our leader, Christophe Herbignot. But David Holland put in the fastest lap of the race of anyone last time around, 0.3 of a second quicker than Herbignot. But Herbignot's he's not flinching yet. He's channeling his inner Jackie X, and David Holland, he's channeling his inner Mario Andretti, I think.
Yeah, and I think that Holland is maybe just waiting it out right now. I think he will get there eventually. I think Herbignot is better maybe in a couple parts of the track, and we see the gap stretch out. But then we see Holland start to close it right back in, and he closes up enough that it settles that gap more than it was. So that's one of those things where it's maybe Holland being patient if he's gotten there. And so we'll just have to see how that plays out throughout the rest of this race.
So fantastic, smooth application of the throttle there from David Holland coming out that very tight final corner. It's very easy to get the car spun up, as we saw a number of drivers doing in the early stages, but you just hear him smoothly apply that throttle on. It's obviously the throttle, it's not like a light switch, it's like a dimmer. You know, you just turn it on gently, and that's really important to these cars, because as Taylor Lane gets oh my goodness me, wow, that was that was a rallycross jump in a Dallara F3 car. I didn't know Dallara were making rallycross cars. Let's have a look at this. Bit of understeer as well there, coming into the penultimate corner, hard on the brakes, just outbrakes himself, misses the apex, sees Beswick on the inside, and whoa, over the Scottish curb. I tell you what, Brian, he did well to keep that out of the wall.
I've never honestly seen that before. I couldn't quite tell from that angle, but did their tires touch maybe? That's a weird spot for it to really make the car jump like that because it's kind of made to use that. So I'm very confused as to how that car reacted.
You could be right, actually. Yes, I don't. I have to say, I've run wide at that corner many times, and I've never had the car do that. So you could have a point there with the wheel banging. Yeah, interesting. Wonder we'll get to have a look at that incident. But let's see where. Thank you very much, Marco. Wonderful. Let's see what happens here. So. Uh, Oh, yes, I think possibly a little bit of netcode, Brian.
Okay, so maybe a little bit of net code that acted as if the tires had touched there because I don't really see any other reason for that car to react like that because you really, a lot of times you'll see guys use that runoff to kind of get some more speed to carry through. So that's just a very weird situation here.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, Taylor. But this is the amazing thing about iRacing is you've got someone, there's I'm sitting here in Edinburgh in Scotland, and Brian, you're over in the United States. Marco, our producer, he's in Italy, and then we've got a driver there, Beswick, who's in New Zealand, and then we've got Taylor Lane, who's in the UK, and we're all racing together, and we've got people watching all over the world, and that's what iRacing brings, and all done over the internet, and occasionally you just get that like you said, slight discrepancy where the simulator thinks you are and where you actually are, and that can just cause a little problem. But it's relatively rare, isn't it?
Yeah, it does happen. Sometimes it's just honestly you can have people in the same place and an issue happens. It's all about just your internet and how it reacts with another person's is really the biggest thing about it. So sometimes there's just nothing you can do. The good news is that they both kind of settled their cars back in. There was no real damage done, and they're able to keep racing.
Absolutely, yeah, no harm done indeed. Now, this is an interesting little midfield punch up here as Pancari sitting in 13th place overall, and actually quite far down the order in his class. He's 7th in class right now, and he's currently sitting in 4th in the AM Championship as we see sights going off as well. Yeah, the top 5 pro class leaders, they're all the top 5 overall as well. So let's see what happened to sights here. Now this is coming up to the entrance onto the Rahal straight, the uphill straight, and it's really, really tricky. Again, blind entry, so easy to catch that horrible sausage curb on the inside, or turtle curb, some people refer to it, but able to keep it out the wall.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things is if he hasn't used that fast repair yet, he might be able to get back and get that done so that he can finish this race out with a good position, or maybe try to just finish it out with us being so close to the end, as long as he doesn't have that dreaded meatball flag, as we call it. So, but the battle up front is kind of stretched a bit as Herbinho is pulled out to almost 2 seconds up front. So he's really laying down some consistent laps at the moment, being able to stretch that lead. We saw it was down to half a second at one point, and then he's just, since we last checked on it, has stretched it out. As right now we see a great battle happening for 4th here between Mitch Green and Hugh Barter battling it out.
Yeah, very, very impressive indeed from these drivers. And I have to say, Brian, when we go into our feature race, where the top 10 of this race are inverted on the grid, so the driver in 10th place, which is Colin Campbell, the Scot right now, he would start from pole position if you put the flag out now. And Herbinho would start in 10th, with David Holland starting in 9th. And for those now, who is that slow on the grid? I recognise that car. Who is that? I can't quite tell the number on that one. It's number... Oh, it's Beswick. It's Beswick, the number 30. The Kiwi, who's had a little bit of a... Sorry, the Australian, who's... My apologies. Antipodean. Who's had a problem there. But I think, Brian, for Herbinho and to a certain extent for Holland as well, they're going to have to be super patient in the feature race, because you look how far ahead they are on pure pace. Well, that's pointless if you get involved in an incident. So that patience is going to be vitally important in the feature.
Yeah, we saw it last week, especially with Holland, where he had an issue lap one and had to pit because of it after having such a great finish. So yeah, it's one of those things where you have to truly be able to manage traffic in the feature with the inverted grid. So we see the fast guys being put back in the field and seeing how they can do. And I think last week that really played into Herbinho's hand where he had some issues in the heat race that allowed him.
Oh,
Oh, and a
Baloo's
big
off!
issue here for Baloo.
Oh, that's our AM leader. Baloo, our AM leader, has had a spin, but he has quite a big advantage back. I think he might be able to pull off the spin and win here if he can calm down and just settle down. He's lost about 8 or 9 seconds of his advantage, but he's still ahead of Nicholas Nolivos, the Colombian, just about, with Taylor Lane in third place in class in the 32 car. You see him there, that yellow and black machine. So maybe Baloo might be able to get the spin and win, which is quite the honour. As we have the white flag, we're on the final lap, and Christophe Herbigno looks like he's got this one in the bag, Brian.
Yeah, he can honestly just take it really easy this lap, and he has such a decent gap that he can just let him catch up to him a little bit if he needs to. Just no mistakes is the biggest thing that you want here. Just be patient, take your time through these turns, make sure you clear them all as best as you can, and then you'll be good to go to get the win and get most importantly, the points that you need for this championship.
Yeah, and that's what Christophe Herbigno is doing, and this will be 2 wins in a row after his feature race win at Monza. He negotiates the final turn, so the Belgian Christophe Herbigno, the fiercely forward driver, takes the win here in the heat race at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, with championship contender David Holland coming in second position. We now wait for the number 74 of Sights to come through. And it's quite nice. He takes the final spot on the podium. Now it looks like Baloo is going to be able to get the spin and win. So fantastic stuff. Your AM winner then, number 41, Shivan Baloo, is your AM class winner with a 360 spin, 2 laps to the end, and still wins it. That, Brian, is what I call style.
Yeah, it's always amazing when you see something like that, because usually when you see a spin happen, you don't have that chance to pull off the win, but he had built such a big lead for himself that it gave him that opportunity. And the biggest thing was it wasn't like he spun off the track or anything. He still spun and stayed on track, so he was able to just really keep going afterwards. So, and I think that really played into it too.
Certainly did. As we see just our last of our runners coming through there. And we will be ready we'll have a very brief warm-up session for our drivers. A warm-up session for the drivers, a cool-down session for us here in the commentary box. But let's take a look at our race results then and see how all of your favourite drivers finished here in the opening heat at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Your winner then, Christophe Herbigno in the number 13 fiercely forward machine, winning by 1.3 seconds from David Holland. Greg Sights in the number 74 Rust Racing Steel machine rounds out the podium. Hugh Barter, the number 68, and a fantastic recovery after an early mistakes to come in 4th position. Mitch Green not too far behind in 5th. Your AM class winner, Mr. Spin and Win himself, Shivan Baloo, in the 41, wins from the Colombian Nico Nolivos, with Taylor Lane in the 32 Fiercely Forward machine. Well, Fiercely Forward certainly apt for him after a recovery from an early incident. Good drive indeed. Eddie Beswick, 9th overall, 6th in the Pro class in his number 30 machine, with Isaac Snyder rounding out the overall top 10. The Scotsman Colin Campbell in the 77 came in 11th. Mark McDonald 12th. Aidan Aquino was 13th. Brett Pancari in the Jordan Peugeot, he was 14th overall, with Oscar Avella in 15th. Gianni Espinoza was 16th after that early incident. 17th was Derek Holland. 18th was Marco Holterman, with Georgie Zuen, Dave McDonald, Dan Crayfus, Esteban Rosas, Kevin Zwemstra, Ethan Lamp, Jay Steffi, Brian Vorse, Andre McCullen, and Steve Brown, rounding out the first 28 runners, with Joshua Jensen, Aaron Smith, and Charlie Oliver rounding out our field. So we now head forward to our feature race. Our driver's now just having a very quick warm-up before we get going. 5 minutes out on track just to get those final couple of laps of practice. And Brian, well, that heat race was incredibly eventful. Do you think a few drivers might learn their lesson from that particular race?
I don't think we are done seeing some wrecks happen here today, especially with a much longer race and with tire wear that's going to happen over this long race, and with the heat that's on this track. So I think that we're going to see some mistakes happen, in which this track does, as we see right there, that where the 21 was going through the corkscrew. That's what I talked about earlier, where it's very easy to mess up the corkscrew to where you are too close and end up getting a time penalty, because that's the spot where you would get a time penalty for, where we saw him. So I definitely don't think we're done seeing incidents, as at any point a mistake can happen with this slick track and people can just lose control.
I completely agree. Of course, our feature race, 40 minutes in length, and a completely different prospect to the 20-minute sprint we've just seen there. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. I was thinking about the race earlier, and I was just thinking patience is just going to be so important. It's very important anyway, but at this particular circuit, you really, especially when you've got inversion in the grid and things like that, you've just got to play it so careful. And if you have to yield to people early on, just do that, because there is going to be big calamities. And we saw so many times in that first race, Brian, drivers getting involved in massive incidents that were absolutely not their fault, but you know, it was one of these. Some of them were avoidable just by a little bit of patience and a little bit of foresight.
Yeah, so it's a lot of awareness that goes on in these cars, especially, is just being aware of what's going on. We saw a little bit there where sometimes that awareness is actually really hard to have, where a car is parked in the middle of the track and you don't know where it's gonna go. So one person that I've watched consistently says that the best way to avoid the wreck is get as close to it as possible, because at that point you can then make that decision on where you need to go. But we saw it happen earlier where that wasn't the case, and they got close and then had nowhere to go. So a lot of it is just preparing yourself for the wrecks and being prepared on how to avoid them.
Absolutely. Indeed, as we see, we're just coming to the end of the final parts of qualifying, and our drivers will be ready to take their half-a-ton machines, 550 kilos. They really are flyweight machines or in pounds, 1,200 pounds, or in other words, about the third of a weight of a NASCAR Cup car. They are an extraordinary machine. Only 220 horsepower, but that's all you need for these flyweight machines. Quite an old school engine, 2 litres, 4 cylinders, without a turbo, strangely, which we tend to get used to now in motorsport. And we are about ready for our drivers to grid up, as Barney the flagman furiously waving the checkered flag as always. So Brian, why don't you take us through our runners and riders for our feature race?
So starting off in first is Isaac Snyder, second Eddie Bestwick, third Taylor Lane, fourth is Nico Nalavas, in fifth is Siobhan Ballou, sixth is Mitch Green, seventh Hugh Barter, eighth is Greg Seitz, ninth is David Holland, 10th is Christoph Herbigno, 11th is Colin Campbell, 12th is Mark McDonald, in 13th is Aiden Aquino, 14th is Brett Punkari, 15th Oscar Avella, 16th is Gianni Espinoza, 17th Derek Holland, 18th is Marco Holterman, 19th is Georgie Zuin, 20 is Dave McDonald, 21st is Dave Cranefus, 22nd is Esteban Rosas, 23rd is Kevin Zwestra, 24th is Ethan Lamp. In 25th is Jay Steffi, 26th Brian Vorst, 27th Andre McCullen, 28th is Steve Brown, 29th Joshua Jensen, 30th is Aaron Smith, and 31st is Charlie Oliver.
Well done, Brian. Right on time for the lights to go up, and we are off here for our feature race at Laguna Seca. As we see Taylor Lane in the middle there in the number 32, fiercely forward. Can he be late enough on the brakes to get that lead position? He does. coming through as we got a few drivers off in the background. We'll have a look at those in a moment. Now, is that Herbigno off in that black machine? I think it might be. Is it Herbigno? It looks awful like his machine. And I think he's been able to stay out the wall, which is good if that is him. But Taylor Lane, oh, he looks like, yes, he leads away in the number 32 car with the number 30 of Eddie Beswick right behind him. So nothing to separate these two guys in either race so far.
Yeah, so, and that turn one, I actually think it went better than I thought it was going to after all the incidents that we saw there. Now the big test is coming up in that corkscrew and seeing if they can make it through cleanly here. It looks like the front runners seem to do... Oh, and just as I say that, the 41 goes around.
And the 32, Taylor Lane as well. Oh no! He goes for the flick turn in another car. Oh, what are the chances of that? He went for the flick turn as he should have done. And another car comes flying down on the behind him, which I'm sure caught Taylor Lane out. But, that allows... Yeah, that allows the number 30 of Eddie Beswick to try and get away at the front, the Pro Class driver. But I tell you what, watch for Hugh Barter, the 68 machine, in third place right now, moving past Schneider. So it's two pro drivers at the front, Barter and Beswick. That sounds like a law firm, but not today. Two racing drivers going for the victories. David Holland looks like he's been able to get away cleanly for now. He's up to 5th, but where on earth is Herbigno?
Yeah, and that's a big difference this week compared to last week for David Holland of being able to keep it clean and be able to work his way up. We know where he finished 2nd there in the heat race, so we know that he's quick. It's a 2.5 second gap now for him up to the leaders, so we'll have to see as he works his way around traffic and how cleanly he can do that.
So this is huge for David Holland because Christophe Herbigno is in the pit lane, or has been in the pit lane, and has come back out again. He's in 23rd position and nearly half a minute down on the leader already. For David Holland, well, he's in a far better position. He's got to now take it very, very steady, not take on too many crazy moves. You see, he gives Sights there a lot of room, exactly as he should. Now remember, in our Pro Championship, Coiter is not here, and Herbigno is obviously further down the way. For Green, for Mitch Green in the 27 car, let's see if I can see where he is on our time screen. He's down in 17, so for David Holland, this couldn't be going much better.
Yeah, and we up for the lead right now. We had Eddie Beswick, who laid down the fastest lap, and then right behind him, Hugh Barter came up and laid down an even faster lap, so by almost a second. So Barter is coming, but for now, Beswick's able to hold him off, and we still have a lot of laps to go here, so we'll continue to see this battle shape up, and I am excited for this one because I think this is going to be a fun battle to see at the lap times these guys are laying down.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Brian. And like you mentioned earlier on, just how important it is and how hard it is to maintain 40 minutes or 23 laps of mistake-free driving around this Laguna Seca raceway. It's so tough to do that, and that is, if you can do that, it's well, you will be rewarded handsomely. As we see, this is an onboard with Christophe Herbigno. He has to go really much to the wide line, and he just gets sandwiched in. There's not really anywhere for him to go, and that's just purely a kind of, well, a little bit of a symptom of being, unfortunately, with his success in the opening heat race. He with winning that race, he had to start from 10th, and really, I don't know much of what he could have done about that.
Yeah, no, just we saw the guys in front make contact, and at that point, he then went inside to try to avoid them, and the car was there that ended up tapping him. So it's just the nature of what an invert does, but it does make for some great racing and storylines as the race goes on. So as we see, David Holland's been able to work his way up, and we see other guys up front like Eddie Beswick and Hugh Barter, who had some issues in the Heat 1, and now here they are up leading this field right now.
Well, you talk about storylines, Brian. Christophe Herbigno, he's giving us one. He's just set the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 16.3, so he's on a charge already. He's got his car back to full fitness again, and he's back out. He's now already up to 18th place. Now, he races for the Fiercely Forward team. Well, I suspect that's what we're going to see him do, and if he can keep his nose clean, who knows where he can finish. Well, look at that. David Holland answers back with a 1 minute 16.3 of his own. So Christophe Herbignon running, the only driver running quicker than him right now is David Holland in third.
Yeah, and Holland's coming up on the front too right now, and so we'll see him. He's going to try and work his way around them, but I'm sure they're going to put up a big fight because I know they want some great finishes and to go for a win also. So a great battle for first is shaping up right now as Bestwick continues to lead.
Absolutely. I think for David Holland right now, I suspect he's feeling very comfortable right now with Beswick and Barter just, well, in front of him. He can kind of let them get on with it, I suppose you could say. Because, well, it's we've seen so many times drivers colliding, and for David Holland, he doesn't necessarily need to go and get his elbows out and get involved in that battle. He's sitting at a safe distance, and that's exactly where he needs to be right now, thinking about the championship. And of course, next time we go to Bathurst in Australia, and if you think this is hard to avoid mistakes, Bathurst's another time again.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun there. I think every track that we go to, we're just going to continue to see these big battles happening as these two are side by side for the lead right now. As Barter goes to the inside of Bestwick in turn one, and I thought for a second Holland was going to push the issue and try to get to the inside also, but he thought better of it, I think, and ended up pulling back the reins a bit. So we do have a change for that lead, but I'm not sure how long Barter's going to be there.
Yeah, David. Oh, David! Oh, my word, that was close. David Holland, yeah, you could just see he's got much more pace than Beswick, and he makes the move confidently, but that could have ended in tears very easily. David Holland just flirting with the disaster there, but Herbignon sets another fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 16.1 this time, so really upping the ante. He's up to 16th already now. Who is that? Has had a spin. That's the number 10 of Aiden Aquilo. Reversing that. Oh, don't do that, Aiden. Oh, dear. Just getting the car turned around, avoiding contact, luckily. So now it's going to be a battle between Barter and Holland at the front, and interesting to see how much David Holland is going to push Barter.
Yeah, and another thing will be the tire wears. We saw Quino's incident there where he just pushed a little wide and ended up getting loose after touching the dirt, really. So, but yeah, like I was saying, it's really comes down to tire wears. Another thing, this track is hot and slick. You are slipping and sliding. These tires are going to fall off as the race progresses. And so it's really going to come down to who can manage that the best and be able to hold on for the longest time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right here at Laguna, really punishing on tires because, to be honest, there's not really any straight part on the circuit. You're always going left, right. There's always turning, always putting load in the tire, and yeah, especially with the aerodynamic load you get from these F3 cars, it's gonna put punishment through them for sure. We're looking at Christophe Herbignon, who's doing a great job to recover from that early incident. He's now chasing down Espinosa. Is he going to have a little look here? He does. Gets it done very confidently. Very good, and given good room by Espinosa as well, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where respect starts to come and shape up a little bit, because if you are one of the guys that are struggling as another car is off there, couldn't quite tell who that was, but where you're a car that seems to be struggling a little bit, and if a faster car comes up with the incidents we've seen, it's kind of like let them go. There's no sense in really racing that car at the moment and putting yourself in a bigger risk.
So that was the number 80 of Derek Holland there, who's gone off, who's dropped out the top 20 now. But at the front, well, David Holland and Hugh Barter are really pushing on now. Both drivers there underneath the 1 minute 16 barrier, so they're into the 1 minute 15s, and that is really optimum pace now. That's pretty much qualifying pace they're on right now. So both drivers, if you think David Holland is settled into cruise mode, he definitely hasn't. You do not set that kind of lap time on cruise mode. You see the front left wheel there just pinching slightly on the brake. So it's almost something you almost have to manage that, knowing that it's virtually impossible not to at least lock up that front left wheel going into the corkscrew, but you just kind of have to manage it and almost skid your way down there. But let's see what the gap is when we get over the line. Let's see what these lap times are between Hugh Barter and David Holland. So let's see what they get. Barter with a 1 minute 15.7, so actually slightly quicker than Holland, who's a 1 minute 15.8. And look at that, they're Holland a second quicker than Beswick behind him. So these guys are operating in another planet. But I bet you, Christophe Herbignot, I bet you he's not far off that pace.
Yeah, but you also, like I mentioned, you got to be thinking, how are these guys' tires going to be when it comes down to that lap, say 18, 19, once we start getting up there? As it looks like Isaac Snyder is around and turning his car back around to go the right way. So no damage done, it looks like. Nothing too bad. He was, I believe, leading the AM. So we'll have to see where that ends up putting him after all this.
So let's see what happened to the number 42 of... Now, that's not Aaron Smith there. I'm trying to see who that is there. And that's Snyder. Snyder having a little bit of a... In the 33, Isaac Snyder is having a little bit of a spin. And that means the number 42 of Aaron Smith, who had a really tough opening heat race, he is now leading the amateur class in the AlphaTauri machine. And you'll notice he's wearing a wonderful Damon Hill replica helmet, which of course Damon inherited that design from his father Graham, who used the design from the London Rowing Club. It's actually a rowing helmet, or a rowing helmet design. Of course, it's not an actual rowing helmet, that would be very dangerous, but the design of the London Rowing Club on that helmet.
Yeah, and I think I'm back on board with the AlphaTauri being the livery that I choose for the livery contest. So he's back to leading the AM at the moment. So that's my pick at the moment.
Brian Delp, you're just a glory hunter. You really are. When he was down, when he had three wheels, you're going, nah, I don't like that anymore. No, I don't like that livery. He's crashed. No, he's. And now he's in leading the class. You're going, oh, hello. This really is just like a glorified version of Tinder. It really is. The livery competition here in the Apex Racing Academy F3 Super Series with VRS. Anyway, back to the racing. Christophe Herbignot, the Belgian, well, he is really pushing on now in the 13 machine. He's up to 14th, but look at the traffic he's got in front of him now. He's next up. He's got McDonald in that wonderful blue and orange machine, and that is that Snyder off again? I can't quite tell the number. I think it is. Yes. Thank you, Brian. So you won't like that livery now that he's just had an accident.
The funny thing was he was one I had my eye on also, just because of that. I like the way the colors spread out on that car, but it doesn't seem like he had any damage, so he was able to at least keep it from anything serious, and he's able to carry on with the race. But he's now just losing more and more positions, and that's going to be disappointing for him after he was leading the AM class.
So number 13, let's have a look. What happened to Snyder, the 33. Oh, is it going to be a typical? Yeah, just gets too late on the brakes, and when you get to this point, it's far too late. And they now, back in 2008 at that corner, Brian, of course, it's a very famous corner of the corkscrew, maybe the most famous corner in the world, actually. And the most famous overtake ever made on that corner was in 2008 when the greatest motorcycle racer of all time, 9 times a world champion, Valentino Rossi, overtook Casey Stoner on the Ducati there. Even though Casey had a lot more pace, was over a second a lap quicker, but Valentino Rossi put a hard move on him and actually forced Casey into a big mistake where he fell off at the final corner, and he went on to win that Grand Prix, the United States Grand Prix, the Motor Grand Prix of 2008. Did you see that race, Brian?
I did not. I was a bit young at that point, being able to get to see those races. So
I'll send you the clip.
I'll have to check it out afterwards. But we do have some great battling going on as Barter is stretching his lead out over David Holland. They've been running some very quick times along with very close times to one another, with Hugh Barter on his last lap was a 1:16.15. David Holland had a 1:16.26. So Barter's slightly faster on that last lap, and that's something that's interesting to see because after Holland's performance in the heat race, you kind of figured he'd be up there pretty quickly and into the lead.
Yeah, it's interesting. It seems like they're mirroring each other's pace. Now, of course, Barter, I would think he'll be going, yeah, wow, 1 minute 15.5, Holland 2/10 back, 1 minute 15.7. So they're obviously both drivers just slightly slower than the pace they've been and now back to where they were in the 15s. Running back with Herbigno, he's got up to 11th now. He's gone past Pancari. Pancari very cleverly moves out the way. It's a pro class driver coming through. He's saying, "You go ahead. I'm not gonna hold you up." So that's Herbigno back into the top 10, and he is really on a tear. We've got 10 laps to go. Who knows how much Herbigno can make up. Now, interestingly for Christophe Herbigno, when he came out of pit lane, he was just over 30 seconds from the leader. He's now still just 35 seconds for the leader. Now, considering he's had to come through lots of traffic, that is very impressive indeed.
Yeah, it is. And we saw there on the replay that Barter pushing a little bit wide there, getting off track, having the control to be able to keep the car going straight. But I'm sure he doesn't want too many incidents like that, because if he continues to do that, then we will see him turned around at some point during this race.
I think it might have been Beswick, actually, the number 30 car. They look very similar. That blue car, as we're riding on board with the 74 of Sainz, chasing down the 30 of Beswick. They're both Australian, funnily enough. So it must be about blue cars and Australians. They like that. So, Sainz, he's American. He's chasing down the Australian, Beswick. 12 seconds off the leader right now, but looking very, very smooth indeed. And Herbigno now up to 9th place, so he's just carving his way through the pack. Now, who's this had an issue? Is that Schneider again? No, it's no, it's the Scotsman, Colin Campbell. No, I'm totally impartial, but no.
Yeah, it just seems to have, and that's just one of those classic cases where off of that last turn, you can get into that gas a little too hard and that back end comes around. I've done that many times myself in the Mazda series, let alone getting into one of these open wheelers. So you just don't have a ton of grip on exit there because of how slow you're going, and you just want to jam back into the gas. But really you can't, because if you do, what we just saw happens, and you're just turned around on the track.
Now here we go, Aaron Smith. He's become a bit of a favourite in the commentary box here in the number 42 AlphaTauri machine. He's become a favourite with Brian Delt because he's currently winning, and he's become a favourite with me because I had the most amazing admiration for this man. 3 wheels on his wagon, drags it back to pit lane, gets his fast repair, then gets taken off again. But that's not holding him back. He's currently over 10 seconds ahead in his class. He had a 3rd place finish last time out in the opening heat race, and well, putting in a brilliant performance so far. Must be that livery making go faster, Brian.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the AlphaTauri and with being so closely related to the Red Bull, you know, those cars are always fast and some of the best out there. So he is leading some pro drivers at the moment, also is the highest member of the AM class. So he's built such a big lead at the moment. As long as he can keep it clean, it looks like he's coming away with a class win in that car.
Indeed, the only AM driver in the top 10 right now. But he's going to have the company of Christophe Herbigno before too long, who's now up to 8th, about 5 seconds behind Aaron Smith as it stands. But tell you what, this is a great battle for the final spot on the podium between Sainz and Beswick. They're really playing for keeps here. They're fighting for the honour of chatting to us in the interview room here on Apex Racing TV, which, Brian, of course, is the greatest honour in racing.
Yeah, and we saw a little lockup there. These two are going to be battling for a while, I think. I think what's really going to might decide this thing is who keeps it on the track, because we've seen Beswick have a little bit of issues and get off the track a little bit, which every time you do that, you're costing yourself so much time. But just to show you how fast the front two are compared to them, there is a 14-second gap from the front two back to third place at the moment.
And make no mistake, these guys are pushing, as you can clearly see. And we're on board the Rust racing machine. Tell you what, there won't be any rust on this machine. Being a Dallara, carbon fiber Dallara, it'll be a beautiful machine. And actually, I mentioned earlier Mr. Dallara, Gianpaolo Dallara, who was on the design team and designed and built the original Lamborghini Miura, which to me is still the most beautiful car ever produced. And could you believe, Brian, that they built that car in 6 months? And Mr. Dallara, he once, obviously the Dallara company's done quite well. As we see Sights having a look up the inside, is he going to make it fit? Beswick gives him the room, but then comes to shut the door. Oh, Beswick goes a bit wide, but able to defend. Well done. But yes, Mr. Dallara, he said, one day I want to have a Miura for my museum and put it in the Dallara Museum. And today, in the Dallara Museum, you will find one very shiny Lamborghini Miura.
It's always interesting to see that when these great people in motorsports, what they like to collect, and so that's a great thing to see. And that battle back there also, I got worried going into the last turn all the way up through turn 1 there, because they were side by side heading into it, and I was thinking that someone's gonna push wide and get into each other. And then as they were coming up the front stretch, that the way that they were just nose to tail with one another, I was worried that someone was going to try and put their nose somewhere where there was no room, and they were going to end up taking each other out.
So you're saying you weren't listening to my really interesting story, Brian? Is that what you're trying to say?
I may have partially been.
I'm only kidding. So back at the front, Hugh Barter. Well, he has had his gap sliced apart by David Holland, because after opening up the gap to over a second, look at that. Now it's, visibly, he's right on him, just a handful of tenths of a second. So now, are we going to see David Holland, like you called it, Brian? He might have just been saving his tyres, but with 5 laps to go here, looks like he's ready to pull the pin and go for it.
Yeah, and what's incredible is for a while there, other than this last lap, I believe from watching the times, I was trying to keep track of it, they were still in the 115s. Up until this last lap, they were into the 116s with Holland running a 116.24. So these guys have consistently been faster than the entire field by over a second. That is incredible pace that these guys have shown here.
Oh, who's this? This is, couldn't quite tell who that is, who's just gone off track right now. I think it's McDonald. Yeah, Mark McDonald in the Rust Racing Team car gone off there, unfortunately. But interesting, just to Brian, going into the corkscrew, David Holland made a big mistake and went wide just before Rainey, and that lost him a lot of time. But then Hugh Barter went wide as well, as we see. Oh my goodness me, Colin Campbell, the Scotsman. Well, we do like skidding and oversteer here in Scotland, but as you see, a big send there. Aaron Smith, he's just defending a lap car indeed, yes. And Herbigno, he's up to 7th place, and still on a charge.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where we said that you have to continue to fight back. He had those issues, and I believe he pitted, if I'm correct, for that fast repair and took it, and now he's worked himself all the way back up to 7th. He did pit for his fast repair, confirmed there. Thank you to our producer and broadcaster Mario. So so he's so Marco, sorry, worried about looking at all the names. Sometimes you make a mistake when saying someone's name, but he's worked his way all the way back up, and he's really tried to make some points up here, and that's huge for the championship because he's done so well and gained so many points that he could very well walk out of here if he's running, say, 7th and still pull out the championship lead. But I'm not sure if he'll be able to do that if David Holland ends up taking this win.
I tell you what, Brian, you could call our producer Michael next time, and you'll have got all the racing Andretti's. I'm sure he won't be offended by that, to be called Marco, Michael, and Mario Andretti.
Yeah. Mistakes happen.
They do.
So much names were going on today. You had Indy 500 qualifying, you had NASCAR racing, and now we have this great show going on in these F3 cars. So much going on today. So many names going around. But some great racing happening right now on track.
Absolutely, and just as we were talking there, it was 1 minute 15.4, fastest lap of the race so far for David Holland, and he's using all the track and more there coming out of the penultimate bend, and track limit abuse there, possibly getting right onto the green stuff. That was right on the limit, I would wager. But Hugh Barter, he's matching every single question that David Holland has asked of Hugh Barter. Hugh Barter has come up with the answer, matching that pace. And as you said, Brian, they're so far ahead of everyone else on pace. To lap anything under 1 minute 16 here at Laguna Seca is fast in one of these cars. I was watching some of the practice before we came on air, and even the fast drivers like David Holland, Barter, Herbigno, majority of their laps were all in the 1 minute 16s, and Holland only had 3 laps in the whole of practice underneath 1:16. Barter only 3, Seitz 4, and Herbigno 3. So for them to be sitting at this kind of pace for most of the race is absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, and like we've mentioned for most of the race too, with how slick this track is, that tire wear is going to be so heavy on them. But to them, it doesn't seem like it's even touched them at all. We've seen the other drivers drop off on their pace a bit, and for the front two, it seems like their tires are indestructible at the moment. They haven't fallen off at all, and to be able to run at the 115s with 21 laps into a race, that is just some insane pace going on right now.
Especially with these track temperatures, but look at that. Hugh Barter, maybe the first little wobble there. 1 minute 16.2, Holland a 1 minute 15.8, so that could be pivotal as we go. We're on the penultimate lap now, so Hugh Barter's just got to hang on for a few more miles, but that is so easy to say, so difficult to do. Has he got any life left in those Hankook tires? And here's some Steve Brown in the 38 AM car coming up, and well done, Steve. That is what we like to see. Getting well out of the way, not spoiling his own race, and certainly not spoiling the leader's race. Big plus to Steve Brown there. Good man.
Yeah, and we see these guys just continuing to push one another here. Oh, that got really close going into that corkscrew. I always get worried when you see them so nose to tail going into that corkscrew. The person in front is going to check up just a little bit more than the person behind, and we're just going to see a pile up happen in that corkscrew.
You warned our viewers right at the beginning. Holland spins! Holland spins! He's done a Casey Stoner! And he's spun, but he's back. Can he hold second position? He's got a lot of time back, but David Holland was really pushing there. Coming out at the penultimate bend, he was using all the track and more again. Let's see what happens then. He goes really late on the brakes, and he's too late on the brakes. He's never making the corner, and around he goes. That's well, in the MotoGP 2008, Valentino Rossi, that was the corner where Casey Stoner made the mistake. What a pity, but never mind. We've got this battle between Bezic and Seitz, and they're just playing for keeps here. I think this is going to go right down to the final corner as we're on the white flag lap, last lap.
Yeah, and they've been battling since I believe like lap 7, so these two have put on a great show for us here, battling for that podium finish right now. And I think that it's going to end up being Bestwick. He's been able to hold him off for so long, but you never know what could happen in some of these corners where Seitz could decide it's time and just send it in there.
Could indeed, and look at Christophe Herbigno. He's now hassling McDonald in the 21 machine who came off, as we see Hugh Barter comes out the final corner to take the feature race win here in the Apex Racing Academy F3 Super Series with VRS, as we see Seitz now putting on loads of pressure, really putting the number 30 of Beswick right in the vice. Can he make the move? It's going to be a drag race. It's going to be a drag race to the line. Here we go. We're on board in the chopper. Is it going to be Beswick? It's going to be Beswick. Just. And look at Herbigno. Is he going to get up the inside of McDonald now? Just about, but McDonald gets the cut back. But Herbigno just about gets it done. He moves up to 6th position, and what a drive from the Belgian in the number 13. But here you go. Here's your man, Brian. Aaron Smith.
Yeah, and he ends up finishing in 8th place ahead of multiple pro drivers and the only AM driver in the top 10. So big ups to Aaron Smith to be able to pull that out in that AlphaTauri livery there. So some great drama happening in that final turn throughout the entire field. And Hugh Barter is able to pull out the win for the pros.
Yeah, stellar drive from Hugh Barter under a lot of pressure from David Holland, one of the very best drivers in the championship, and he did not flinch once. Very, very impressive indeed. And I have to say, what a recovery from the 42 of Aaron Smith after a horrible race one, able to come back, put it behind him, and score a brilliant race victory. True Damon Hill style. He's holding up the honour of his helmet design he's wearing. But I tell you what, let's have a look at how all those drivers finished after all that hullabaloo here in the F3 VRS Super Series. Your winner then, Hugh Barter in the number 68, wins by over 5 seconds in the end from David Holland after that late race spin. Eddie Bezic in the number 30 machine rounds out the podium with Greg Seitz in 4th. Georgie Zun was 5th with Christophe Herbignot, the number 13 car, fighting all the way back up to 6th place. And I tell you what, come the end of the season, I think that will be very important indeed. In 7th place was Mark McDonald with our amateur winner in 8th place overall. A great drive from the Briton, Aaron Smith in the 42 machine. 9th was Dan Crafis with Dave McDonald rounding out the top 10. 11th was Brett Pancari. 12th was Gianni Espinosa, 13th Aidan Aquino, 14th Ethan Lamp, 15th Isaac Snyder after a few spins, 16th Nico Nolavos, 17th was Taylor Lane, 18th Colin Campbell, the Scotsman, 19th Esteban Rosas, 20th Brian Vorse, followed by Shivan Ballou, Oscar Avella, Derek Holland, Marco Holterman, Steve Brown, Jay Steffi, Andre McCullen, and Mitch Green, with Kevin Zwemstra, Joshua Jensen, and Charlie Oliver rounding out the final runners. So, Brian, do we have any of the drivers in to come and have a chat with us?
It looks like we have 2 drivers currently in the waiting area. We have Brett Pancari and Mark McDonald. Which one would you like to speak to first, Peter?
Oh, I think why don't I have a chat with Brett Pancari, because I want to ask him about his livery. So why don't we get Brett in for a chat? Brett Pancari, welcome to the Apex Racing TV commentary box. How did your race go today?
Probably better than I thought it was going to be, in all honesty. At least I survived all the mayhem in the first couple laps, but other than that, I knew I did not have any pace, but at least the car felt pretty decent.
Now, I hope the car felt decent, but one thing's for sure is the car looked decent. You're, of course, running the Jordan Peugeot livery. Tell us about why you made that choice, and tell us about the colour scheme.
Well, the main reason I chose this car, just so I can have a Peugeot engine. I have a soft spot for Peugeot. And I figured I used to run like one of the Williams scheme they had this year until they lost the rocket colors. So I figured I swapped to this one. At least a little bit different of an F1 scheme compared to all the other ones that have been running, like the old Williams or Ferraris and stuff like that. So it's just a way of being a little bit different, in all honesty.
Well, it certainly caught my eye. Brian and I have been debating throughout the season so far of who's in the running for best livery of the season, and I can assure you, you're in a strong contention for my vote. So one other livery to check out is it's really cool, very simple. Is the original Jackie Stewart Tyrrell livery, and it wasn't a Peugeot livery, it was a Peugeot engine. It was a Cosworth engine, unfortunately, but very nice one to check out if you get bored with the Peugeot one. Now, before we let you go on Apex Racing TV, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Well, I gotta thank Jordan F1 team, obviously, Peugeot engines, Total Fields, Beta 2, ICL, all the sponsors, well, quote unquote, not really, even though this is a car from 1995. And just thanks to everyone at the Apex Racing for allowing me to be a part of this. It's kind of a last-minute decision for me to be a part of something like this, but I wanted to kind of expand my horizons a little bit and start doing some more maybe road leagues. And right now, at least because I just returned to work this week. At least my schedule right now, at least I can still continue to run this. So it's just a way of expanding my horizons a little bit. And even though I may never have the pace, but I'm going to try to keep going as long as I can, at least having decent runs. And just thanks to everyone else for racing with me tonight.
Well, it was certainly a pleasure for us to watch you in action, Brett. Congratulations on a good run out today, and looking forward to seeing you next week at Bathurst.
All right, thanks.
So that was Brett Pancari, one of the AM Class Championship contenders, and of course, one running a wonderful classic Formula One livery. Now, I believe my colleague Brian Delp is speaking with our second place finisher and championship contender, David Holland.
Hey, David, another great run for you today in both the heat and the feature race. I'm sure it's not quite exactly what you wanted, but overall, how do you feel the race ended up going for you?
Yeah, man, I just can't seem to get the win in this league yet. But really happy with second place. The first heat, hats off to Chris. He ran a fantastic race. I was kind of just waiting for a mistake, and it never came, or we just happened to make mistakes at the same time. Unfortunately, I kind of left the door open for him. Hindsight probably wasn't the smartest thing to do, but still, hats off to Chris for a great win in the first heat. And yeah, the feature, that was I felt like I was driving a different car at the end of that than what I started with. It was definitely evolving a lot throughout that race, and towards the end, it was everything I could do just to keep it under me. And then, of course, you guys probably saw I had that little spin in the hairpin. But overall, yeah, pleased with second place.
Now, you mentioned about the car evolving. Well, we were looking at the lap times. You and Hugh were still in the 115s with after 20 laps coming to that end. Was there any indication of before that spin was coming about how the car was handling, or did it kind of come out of nowhere?
Oh yeah, no, I mean there's no reason we should have been pushing that hard. Hugh was just clicking them off one after another, and of course, I'm going to push hard to keep up with them as well. But yeah, the tires, the rear end just did not feel like it could really hold that pace. So yeah, it was everything I could do to keep it on the track. And again, hats off to Hugh for being able to push at that pace, especially that late in the race. Just really fantastic driving from him. But yeah, it was certainly a handful.
Now, next week we're heading to Bathurst. How are you feeling about that track? You've had some great finishes so far. Do you think you're going to be able to continue it next week?
Bathurst is a bit like Laguna Seca. It's even more so of a toss up. It's about survival, and we'll see. With the reverse grid, it definitely spices it up some, makes it interesting. So even if you qualify up front, that doesn't guarantee you're gonna stay clear of any of the madness or anything. So we'll see. I mean, my goal there is just going to be to bring it home as well. At least on that track, you get to breathe a little bit. I feel like those two races back to back, I'm covered in sweat and mentally exhausted. So at least we'll get to breathe a little bit there.
Now, who would you like to shout out while you're here on Apex Racing TV?
Yeah, I got to thank the team, Delta Sport, and all the team sponsors: Butt Kicker, Track Monkey Apparel, Move Up Lynchburg, Race Factory, Shout Logo Wear, and Driven Texas. Also, got to thank you guys for the great broadcast here on Apex Racing and Apex Racing League for putting it on. Appreciate it.
All right. And that was David Holland. Again, congratulations on 2 second place finishes today.
So I think we have time just for one more interview, and I believe our AM class winner, Aaron Smith, is here to join us in the commentary box. Aaron Smith, amateur class winner, congratulations. How did that race go for you?
Probably the best it could have gone. Like, I'm still in disbelief how I finished 8th. I genuinely don't know. Like, I can't believe it. Literally, the start, when I tell you, it's like that scene from Cars 1. I just squeezed through the carnage. There was about a 6-car pileup. I'm still in disbelief, honestly.
Well, you certainly deserved it after some rotten luck in race one with lots and lots of calamity with crashes and all sorts. But we were very impressed in the commentary box with you limping the car back on three wheels, which was tell us about that and how much of a challenge that was.
I mean, when I went into the pits, I couldn't even turn fully right. I had to reverse to actually go into the pits. I don't, I don't know why I decided to drive back to the pits, but it worked kind of. But I don't know what happened after that. I just completely lost it and spun like 3 times, and then eventually I had enough, really. But yeah, driving back to the pits on 3 wheels was quite a challenge, I'll be honest.
Well, you'll be able to watch it all back on Apex Racing TV because we followed your progress, and I'll be honest, you'll hear we really were cheering you on to get back to to get back to the pits, and mentioned that that's something that you probably would have seen Damon Hill doing. It's a proper gritty British performance.
Yeah, I mean, I just I don't even know what happened. Like, I just got too greedy out of I think it is turn 4, and just went on the gravel and lost it and tapped the wall, and my wheel came off. And I pulled off some Michael Schumacher-esque driving back to the pits on 3 wheels. But that first race was embarrassing from me. Like, genuinely, I was really disappointed with myself.
You certainly recovered in the best possible fashion, Aaron.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your amateur class win. Gets you right back up in championship contention. And thanks so much for coming to join us in the Apex Racing T commentary box.
And thank you guys for such amazing commentary. I forgot to say that last week.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.
So that was our AM class winner, Aaron Smith, coming in to join us to tell us about his incredibly eventful day, which ended certainly on a high. That's about all that we have time for here on Apex Racing TV. We hope you enjoyed this broadcast of the Apex Racing Academy F3 VRS Super Series. A huge thanks goes to our producer and broadcaster, Marco Barbanera, and also to my colleague in the commentary box, Brian Delp. If you enjoyed the racing today, please don't forget to hit that big subscribe button on YouTube so that you never miss a moment's action of all the racing we cover here on Apex Racing TV. The next round of the championship will be at the incredible Mount Panorama at Bathurst, one of my favourite tracks anywhere in the world, which will be the same time next week at 8 p.m. Eastern next Saturday, and we look forward to seeing you then. Without further ado, thanks very much for watching here on Apex Racing TV, and we'll see you next time.